With Jim Ross warning about having too many titles in AEW and Seth Rollins claiming he had better chemistry with Bayley than Becky Lynch. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report for August 18th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. With his MMA background, WWE champion Bobby Lashley recently told the Battleground podcast that he'd love to fight AEW star Jake Hager in Bellator. I think he's doing great. I think he's moving up. He almost got the Fedor fight. I think he was politicking for that for a while, but a fight with him is something that would be cool, and I would definitely do it. I would probably fight anybody if I went back to fighting, so I'm not saying it's one particular person I'm looking for. Wrestling fans would love to see one wrestler fight another, and I think he's probably the only one that's fighting right now that's an option. It's not one of those things that I want to call him out, but it would be a cool fight and definitely entertaining. At SummerSlam on Saturday, Lashley will be defending his title against the WCW legend Goldberg. Speaking of Goldberg, he appeared on the bump to talk about the upcoming pay-per-view where he touched on eventually facing John Cena and Roman Reigns. I'd love a piece of Roman, and I think even more so would I love to get my hands around Cena's throat, but it's wishful thinking. We'll see. Let's take care of Lashley first. Hey, I've only got 2 more matches on my deal here, so we'll see what happens. While Roman Reigns came out not long ago saying his promos since his return have not been scripted, his former Shield mate Seth Rollins has now told the Sports Media podcast that he really doesn't do scripted promos. Lately, scripted is so tough because I would say I do almost 0% scripted in the sense that I don't write things down on a piece of paper and read them and memorize them in that way. That doesn't really work for me. Scripted in the sense that I have a pretty good idea of what I want to say when I go out to the ring and grab a microphone, but it's not written down. It's like it's written in a tablet in my head. There is no piece of paper for me. I can't do that. I tried it and it doesn't fly for me. I can't be authentic in that way, especially because when you're doing a play or a TV show, there are tons of takes. If you're doing a play, you're doing the same thing every night, so you get accustomed to knowing how you should act. Wrestling is different every week. It's episodic television and changes so quickly. For me, script-wise, almost nothing is written on a piece of paper. Most times I've run it out loud to myself or to someone I trust before I go out there. Oftentimes before the show, if I just have a promo segment, most of the time is writing and rewriting in my head and coming up with different ideas of what I want to say or how I want to get something across, or simplifying an idea or asking what works, or figuring out the goal and the story I want to accomplish with the promo. As we get closer to the show, then I'll start running it with how I say it, my inflection, my tone, my mood. It's definitely not the first time on TV that I hear the words. I go over it a good amount of times. Rollins is set to face Edge at SummerSlam, as we'll have to see who comes out on top in Las Vegas. Staying on the topic of Rollins, he spoke in that same interview about being paired with his wife on screen, claiming they did not have much chemistry. Even pre-trip, drip god, visionary, Monday Night Messiah, it didn't work. Her character is a loner. She doesn't need anybody. To see that character in a relationship doesn't feel good. It never felt good. Especially now, I don't know what it would look like. Seth Rollins and Bayley characters, their synergy was perfect, and it made perfect sense for them to be in the ring together and do a promo together. Becky's character is not built for a number 2. It's really not. There's no harm in it, but I don't think we need to touch on it ever again. While Lynch is reportedly going to be in attendance for the upcoming pay-per-view, she's expected to return in time for the draft in October, according to Ringside News. Since making his company debut in January 2019, Walter has been dominating in WWE, now as NXT UK champion, with him being the longest reigning modern champion. Speaking to TalkSport, he mentioned being called up to the main roster, saying that's not a scenario I've talked about with them. I don't know. I'm happy in the situation I'm in now. I'm the only guy who holds a European championship in WWE, and I'm a representative of European wrestling. To be authentic with that, I've kind of got to live in Europe, if that makes sense. Going forward, nobody can stay on top top forever. At some point, that's the nature of it. Nobody did that before, being unbeaten forever, so we'll see what the future brings. For now, I focus on being the NXT UK champion and have a big match coming up with Dragunov on Sunday, and the outcome of that is going to decide which direction I go in the future, so I can't even make any assumptions or speculations myself. So it's not something I spend too much time thinking about, to be honest. With his title on the line, Walter will be facing Dragunov at TakeOver 36 on Sunday. One half of the Acclaimed, Max Caster, has been at the center of controversy with his rap about Simone Biles and the Duke Lacrosse incident during an entrance for AEW, landing him in hot water. He has since been suspended and will be going through sensitivity training. Touching on this issue, Eric Bischoff said this on his 83 Weeks podcast. "It was stupid. It was just like that Jack over in AEW that rapped the other week and ended up getting suspended for a couple months. At some point, that's your brand, and it's how the TV and advertising business looks at your product and what you do. Once it gets out in the public and people are discussing it on the internet, it just doesn't change anything. That kind of stuff would end up on the desk of advertisement agencies or executives that I worked for in management above me. It's just stupid. I get it, you're trying to get heat. You're trying to be out of the box, trying to be controversial. If anybody believes in that stuff, it's me, but you gotta have some common sense, for crying out loud." AEW has many roster members as well as teams and factions, so much so that there have been rumors of the company introducing 6-man tag team belts. On his podcast, AEW commentator Jim Ross talked about potentially adding those belts along with a junior heavyweight title. AEW does not have a junior heavyweight title. I'm not advocating it either. Too many titles really spoils the soup for me. You don't need that many. I heard somebody say the other day they hoped AEW had a 6-man tag title, and I wouldn't be against it, but it wouldn't be something I'd be breaking my door down and running up and down the halls for. It's hard to maintain a positive focus on multiple titles. Which one is the most important? I think that the trend nowadays is let's just add more titles. It'll solve our issues. No, it doesn't, and if you get too many, they become watered down. I'm very proud of the fact that in AEW we have 3 primary titles, 1 for the women and then 2 singles titles for the men. I think that's about right. If you're a female competitor, you know what your goal is. The TNT title that Miro is holding is certainly one that is reminiscent of a TV title in my opinion. I'm not lessening it, that's just what it reminds me of. Of course, the big title is the one Kenny Omega is holding. I think we're doing that right. Just adding titles to make talent happy is really BS. When it comes to the AEW Blood and Guts match, Chris Jericho has stated on his podcast that he wanted to have it take place in his backyard. We're actually sitting in my backyard right now. When the lockdown started, at one point, we were still thinking about maybe doing Blood and Guts last year, and there was nowhere to do it. I was like, why don't we do it in my backyard and do kind of one of those Inoki Saito Island deathmatch things? There's plenty of room here. That's the thing. There's a different backyard version here than what you would have done back in the day. Following his WWE release and subsequent appearance with Andrade at Triple Mania, Ric Flair is expected to debut for AEW. Now, a new photo is going around the internet that people believe to be of Flair. It's unknown when the picture was taken and if it truly is the Nature Boy. This saw the legend trending on Twitter, with the photo showing a woman receiving pleasure from a man believed to be Rick. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.